is. Hey, welcome to the Fireside Tattoo Podcast, the official podcast of the Fireside Tattoo Network. I'm Jake. This is Rudy Lopez. We are at day 3 of the Tattoo the Lou. Almost said the wrong name. And this space has been. Were you here last year?
Yeah, I was here last year, but I just came to see the show because of all the hype built up on it. I didn't have a booth, but I came last year and I fucking loved it. And fortunately, I was able enough to get a booth here.
Yeah. We were talking beforehand. You're boothed up with Gabe Lundis and Matt Driscoll, who we're trying to hopefully get both of them today. They're always busy doing tattoos, but hopefully we can grab those guys. So you were saying that you and Gabe kind of worked together before he was tattooing, or you knew each other before he was actually tattooing?
Yeah, we met at another convention that happened in Albuquerque. Yeah. And I knew his the guys that he was mentoring under, and I said hi to them and another mutual friends, and then they introduced me to Gabe, and I ended up tattooing Gabe's wife, did a rose on her arm, and it was kind of like an illustrative new school rose, and it was funny because we ended up winning first place for best traditional, and it's not a traditional tattoo. So it was just been an ongoing joke that me and Leanne just entered in traditional, and we actually won one more first place award.
Really?
But yeah, we started there, and I'm pretty sure Gabe was still an apprentice, or he for sure was. I just don't know if he was tattooing at the time.
Yeah.
Pretty sure he wasn't, but shortly after that, we just started hanging out a lot. Gabe consistently just came over to my house. I feel so bad because I live 40, maybe 50 minutes away from him, but every week he'd come over and we'd have art night all night.
Yeah.
And we did that for once a week for 2 years he did it, and it's just crazy to see how much he improved. You talk about some people that they get defensive or anything like that when you critique them or you try and help them out. Gabe was just one of those dudes, just solid, never took anything to heart, never got his feelings hurt, never threw a fit or was sticking to his ground. If you critiqued him on something, he would change it and always be okay, like this for your insurance and stuff. Yeah. So to see where he was just a couple of years ago to where he is now, it's insane.
It is. It's one of the most mind-blowing kind of transitions, and I didn't know him that long ago, but he will on occasion post a rose that he did 3 years ago and one that he's doing today, and it's just amazing. Not just really not from a technical standpoint, although his technique has obviously improved a lot, but just his ability to see and represent things in a believable way. It's just light years from where he was not very long ago, and so that speaks. That doesn't surprise me at all that he was so willing to accept critique and try to implement it, because there's just no other way to grow at that clip.
Oh yeah, he never took anything to heart, and just always wanting more. And some days he'd come over and I feel bad because I wouldn't do any painting, or I would just do more emails or getting back to something or prepping things. There was one night where we were all preparing for a skate deck show, and I was already halfway in my painting process. And then Gabe came along, gessoed his board, sanded it down, painted, and he was done before I was. And I was so mad about that.
So are you? I was just flipping through your work, and it's a lot of black and gray realism. But you were just saying that you're doing some skateboard design. You said you did kind of a color new school rose on Gabe's wife. Are you trying to focus in one particular direction, or do you just enjoy kind of bouncing?
No, I actually have 2 Instagrams now, just because
really?
I felt with color and realism, I felt the color itself was just being overshadowed by my realism, especially the black and gray animal portraits.
Yeah.
So I started a color one just to showcase how all my color looks as a whole, hoping to attract more people. Yeah. But I felt it actually backfired on me because I haven't had anyone come to me for color since I did that. Yeah, because they don't even know about the other Instagram. And especially with neat stuff, just being neatly organized, I just feel a portfolio just looks better, especially if it's just on digital where it just looks all unified. Yeah,
absolutely. And when we're so used to looking at something in a 2x2 square, or if you pan out, in a 1x1 square, smaller than that, I mean, that cohesiveness definitely has an impact on people. At least they know what to expect each time they're coming someplace. Something I've always struggled with. I bounce around too much. And of course, I came up in a time in tattooing when no one specialized really that I knew in anything. So I just kind of my whole career bounced around, and I've never really, I guess, stopped that. And it's obvious if you scroll back and look at your page as a whole, I can say, all right, I know what to expect out of this guy's work. If you scroll back and look at my page as a whole, it's like, what's he going to do next? It could be anything.
Yeah, my page was like that when I was still working at a street shop, just still like, even though I was booked like at least 2 months in advance, I was still catering to what my boss would want, and if I had time to get a walk-in in, I still had to do stuff like that. And I posted everything, and so it'd be one day black and gray, one day color, then Japanese or traditional, and it just looked like a shop's page. It didn't look like an artist page.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah. So I was just flipping, something popped up. It may have been the most recent thing in your feed. And it was, I think it was a lion, black and gray lion, and then you use some opaque kind of grays and muted colors in it too. Are you mixing opaque? Or I think you did. Are you mixing gray washes and some opaque color as well, or did I just read that wrong?
No, I think what it might have been is like a second pass or something on
okay.
it. I generally like to do a couple passes. I mean, I don't want to suck people in and just be like, oh, we got to do another one or another one, another one. I've learned to just add what I feel like it needs. I've learned over time, if something doesn't need it, don't do it. No one taught me that, but it was just more realizing when something looks good. Like I did this color realistic tiger one time, and I thought it looked awesome just the first pass, and then I did another pass on the whole thing, thinking the whole thing needed a pass. If like a touch-up was like you did it throughout the whole thing, not so much specific areas where it needed. So after I did that, I messed it up, and since then I learned like, okay, so I messed it up by doing the whole thing. I should have just left it where it was and just added certain darks here and there. Right,
rather than kind of pushing through the entire thing. And that's a hard habit to break. It's so hard to know when to quit on these things pretty often. Same thing, I love to work in layers. I love to see how things settle. And and so often I'll see an area that whatever, it may be a black that's saturated well, and it seems a little flat to me, so I want to tint it. So I'll like mix a magenta and I'll lay it in on that black, and then suddenly like that black now is too much of a focal point. It's like warmed up too much and it's jumping forward. I'm like, why didn't I just leave the stupid thing alone? You just can't do it. So I did notice looking at your work that you're pretty bold in leaving a lot of. You're not afraid to leave a lot of skin, huh? Or I guess it's part of your goal is to leave a lot of skin.
Yeah, I think. Just seeing tattoos over time. I think the most manipulating thing that the tattoo artists and the tattoo community does is we manipulate tattoos by just showing a great photo.
Yeah.
And you really don't know how something's going to look unless you see it in person. And so you see all these crazy details, you see all these minute, insane details, but sometimes I've seen people's work, and there's nothing bad about it. I think it's just nature itself, where you put all these little details, but over time they just go together. You can't really see all that stuff. I mean, maybe if it's done with a couple of passes, but I mean, I just talked to Tim Kern for about an hour, and he showed me those two sleeves that he was working on. I was just like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
Like, that was insane. He was like a whole treehouse on one side, and then whole like Alex Gray looking sleeve, and it was just like, this guy proves everything wrong that I thought could happen, but that's only in that style. So I've seen black and gray tattoos where they look great as a photo, but when they heal, regardless if it's one or two passes, it just seems like all those crazy tight details just go together. And I think it's just inevitable with the sake that it's on living flesh. And so it's not the artist's fault, and it's not like they were trying to manipulate it. I just think I've been doing this for 13 years, and you just kind of find things out on your own as you go.
Yeah, absolutely. You find what works for you and what doesn't. We were actually just talking about something similar with Laura Jade over here. She's really gotten away from using light sources and really overly rendering things, and she's just thinking in terms of patterns and stacking patterns, you know, so dark and medium and light. And with that approach, by simplifying, knowing what your big problems are that you're trying to solve, if you feel like you want to add veins in the flowers or little like details and stuff like that, you can, but it's not necessary if you approach the simple shapes correctly.
Yeah.
And it can stand on its own without that stuff. And if you want to add it, great. But it won't save a bad tattoo, and it won't necessarily like overly improve a good design. You know.
Yeah, that's what I really loved about Jeff Ensminger's old work.
Oh yeah.
Not to knock on his new work, it's just
Yeah.
like crazy simplified compared to how it used to be. Because
Right.
I remember seeing his stuff, like it was just this clean ass rose, this blue rose that he did, and it was just like, oh my!
I think I know the
God.
exact. Yeah. I
I've
know the
never
exact-
seen something so fucking clean.
Yeah.
And then after that, I went to the rabbit hole and looked through all his work, and it was just like shocked, and it was just like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
And then seeing some of the roses and some of the skulls that he was doing, where it just had like these little subtle hints of like decay part, where they were just
Yeah.
so simplified, but you knew what was going on, but it looked crazy. Like so much effort put into it, but it actually was just, if you just looked at it and just read it right, you just realized it was really simple and
Yeah.
it was easy to do.
Yeah.
But
His process has been really interesting to watch evolve over the years, and what he's gone to now, which I'm with you. I loved that that stuff that he was doing 10 years ago
Oh,
or so.
yeah.
It was blowing my mind. I love what he's doing now as well, but it's I've talked to him about it. He did my entire torso, and I've talked to him about that transition and like, what made you stop doing all this? Because he was doing all these collabs with Nick Baxter, and they were like, you almost couldn't tell their work apart. They were layering, they were texturing, but like you're saying, Jeff's stuff is super clear, and the shapes were really clear. And he said that he thinks that he just got too fancy for himself. It bored him. He was like, I forgot what made me kind of love tattooing to begin with, and I feel like I've really gone back to my roots now. And so I mean, I completely get it. And they're all, and his tattoos even now are still incredibly clean and super.
yeah,
technically.
I was fortunate enough to get something from him on my thigh, and
yeah.
it was just a coyote skull and some cactus flowers and a little desert theme.
Yeah.
And I requested for like his texture to be like old style, but he was just like, sorry man, I don't tattoo like that.
Right.
Which I respected, but he was still like very cool about it, and like said that he put some cool textures and all that. So it still has like that subtle transition from where he went to, from how he was doing things to how he's doing things now.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot just by watching it, but
Yeah.
god damn, it was one of the most painful tattoos I got.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
it's in there.
It's in there, yeah. He's not messing around. I was making that trip to Austin on a monthly basis, and each time I would start to get the sweats. Like as I'm an hour outside of Austin, like, oh god, I don't want to do this again. It's so brutal. He is not playing around.
Oh, yeah.
You had mentioned before we started filming that you've been trying to increase your efficiency in tattooing and your scheduling and your career, I guess, in your life. What's
yeah.
brought that on, and what's the?
I mean, I've been doing this for just over 13 years now, and I'm married. I have 4 kids.
Oh, wow.
My daughter's about to be 13 this year. Just found out she has a girlfriend, and that's a whole nother stressful level. Just like
Yeah.
thinking about the things that we were doing at that age versus
Yeah.
going through your own thing, your own offspring having that.
Right.
So
What are the ages of your kids? What are
my daughter's about to turn 13. My oldest son will turn 9 in October. Second son will just turn 6. My latest child, he'll turn 2 in September.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's,
So a lot of happy accidents.
yeah. So you're. I'm assuming that that your wife stays at home, or do you guys both work?
No, she a complication thing happened back when we first were first transitioning into Albuquerque, because we used to live in Gallup in New Mexico, and it's like Navajo country, the heart of Navajo country out there. And so when I went to Albuquerque for a job, and when we went out there, some complications happened, and like a couple of years later, her parents ended up moving in with us, and when that happened, my wife felt like she didn't really need to be home all the time, so just to have more income, she ended up getting a job.
Gotcha.
And her parents ended up watching the kids, and
That works. Then.
now they just live right next door, and my wife just continues to have her job.
Okay. Awesome.
So
Yeah.
there's that, and just being stupid with my schedule, because I work usually from 8 to 10, or like 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. or midnight sometimes 2 a.m., depending on if I'm really trying to get something done. So there's some days I just go and I don't even see my family. I don't even talk to them. and the days that I have off, I have to go see my daughter because she's from a previous relationship. So, and it sucks because I can't just go pick her up and bring her to the house because it's about 40 minutes away. So by the time she gets out of school, I pick her up, bring her to the house, and about an hour we have to go back. So just all these little things I have to try and get better at managing.
Yeah. So what's been your approach? So how many days a week are you tattooing at that type of schedule?
I tattoo every day because when in the mornings when my kids are my kids will be at school, so I'll take advantage and just get up and at least work from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. or 2 p.m.
Yeah.
And then after that, I'll go to my daughter's house and hang out with her.
Yeah.
About 7 or 8, I'll start heading home, or sometimes I'll work later on that night. Haven't been doing it too much just because this stuff just takes a toll on you mentally.
Yeah.
And where you're just seeing tunnel vision, or if you just feel like mentally you're not stable, or when you're just like not necessarily having suicidal thoughts, but you're just like, oh my God, death would be such a blessing right now.
That's bad when you start thinking like that.
Yeah.
So
but in a joking way.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's crazy. And your body, I mean, not just mentally, but your body, it has to be taking its toll.
Yeah, like just recently my eyes have just been super blurry just from here to like the next booth. Like I'm just consistently trying to open up my eyes, or like squinting doesn't help, but either way I need to go get my eyes checked. And I just got glasses right now just from here to here, where my doctor said that I need to wear them for work. And every 40 minutes, take a break and look at the furthest thing away from me and just start doing stuff like that. And I think I already lost the glasses.
I've been told that stuff too. Focus on something that's at a different distance than what you've been looking at. So what are you doing? What are some practical steps that you've taken to try to become more efficient?
I do my own scheduling, and just to start doing that in the path of that, I've been scheduling 1 tattoo a day in June, and I'm just going to try and stick to that and not be Mr. Yes Man and try and get people in.
Yeah.
Because you think things are, like when we all first start out, we dream of being these booked artists, but like once you're so far booked out, it's like you're just a slave to it, and you're just, if something comes up, all of a sudden you have to reschedule so many people around and all that. And just doing stuff like that over and over, I'm just like, it takes a toll on you, like everything. And then like you're at work, you're trying to please all your clients, and then some clients trying to give you guilt trips, and sometimes clients will just make you feel like a total piece of shit. And you're just like, I'm sorry, I'm like trying to like add more money onto your deposit, I'm trying to do whatever I can, but some people are just, you can't please everyone.
No, you can't. And that's definitely, I agree with you in that you want to be booked out. Everyone hates the idea of walking in and not knowing what they're going to tattoo that day, or if they're going to be able to tattoo that day. And I lived, they just turning the music up and up and up. Yeah. Sorry, everybody. We're at a tattoo show. What was so, you know, I lived through a point in time where I didn't know if I was going to sit at the shop all day and not do anything and not see my family and not get paid. And then now being on the far other side of that thing where there's more clients than I can handle, it's a completely different type of stress. Grass is always greener, I guess. And you definitely get to a point where you have to draw a line in the sand and be like, all right, this is taking its toll on me, on my family. What's the best way to please the – how do I identify what's important to me and my family, and then build from there and work from there out to please the clients?
Yeah, because even then, like things that you thought were important aren't so much important anymore. Because I did last couple of years of traveling a lot. Last year or the year before, I don't know, either one, I did a lot, and it was like overwhelming. I did 2 weeks in Indiana at Studio 13.
Oh yeah,
it was awesome, but just when I get home 2 weeks later and just seeing how much my kids have changed just in the last 2 weeks, it's, you feel like a guilt trip, and like just knowing every day, like you just want to take advantage and play with your kids more and see the things that they're doing and experience and actually grow with them, versus just being surprised when they do something, or like, oh, he's been doing that, or she's been doing that now, and you're just like, you feel like a total piece of shit because you're not what's the word I'm trying to you're not contributing to your kids. You're just learning from them.
Yeah, yeah, and that part of it does fly by, and it's an important thing to consider. And careers are one thing, but yeah, kids only grow up one time. Are you? If you mentioned this, I missed it. Are you in your own space? Do you have other artists there? What's your setup?
I'm in my own space now. I have a little private studio. I mean, I don't even have a sign. I don't have anything.
Yeah.
I'm not on Google. I'm not on anything.
Yeah.
I just have Instagram. I feel like a total piece of shit because people get my numbers somehow and they text me. I'm like, I got 150 unanswered text messages. People just, I have to do a lot of apologizing. I just recently tried to have an assistant. It was one of my friends. He was good at getting back to people, but when it's scheduling consultations, it was throwing me off because he would get them on the right day, but they'd all be at the wrong time. Yeah. And it would be 3 a day, and one was scheduled at 9, but wasn't until 11, then another one at 12, but wasn't until 2, then another one at 3:30, but wasn't until 5, and I had to let him go just because of frustrations like that. So it was working to a certain degree, but it was also messing up my whole schedule. So I'm going to try and get another assistant to help out with that. And as far as like my own place itself, like it's what fits me. I'm trying to tattoo people the way I would like to get tattooed. Hopefully it's working for the most part, because not everyone wants to get tattooed the same way you would want to get tattooed. By trying what I felt like how long people would sit for if they were as comfortable as can be. Yeah. So my mom was just about to throw away her huge ass entertainment center. So I took that and then I put this brand new Curve 65-inch screen TV. Yeah. And put on movies for clients to watch all day, usually comedies or something like that. Yeah. I'll tattoo in the dark when my friend's not there. I have a buddy working with me. His name's Jarrett Rubin. His Instagram name is Doom Kitten. And we've been.
I think maybe I don't know if I follow him, but I know that name.
Yeah, he was on a season 9, I think, of Ink Master.
Oh, okay.
So he was from Albuquerque too, and it was funny because me, him, and Gabe Blondis were all together doing for those 2 years of going back and forth with each other and like helping to improve each other. Because Gabe was really focused on like skulls and roses and painting, all that stuff. Jarrett was very much into like illustration and comic stuff, and I think I was just all over the place, but I still painted and all that stuff, but I had my hands in everything. Yeah. So it wasn't until recently until I really stuck with David and Shayna with the portrait stuff, and that's helped me tremendously. Yeah. So we talked about that before we started filming, but let's dive into that a little bit. So you're working with David Casson and his, are they married? Girlfriend, wife, fiance Shayna Levinson. Yeah. How did that come about? And I'm sure if you guys don't know David or either of them, you should look them up. They're incredible painters. Dave, I was on YouTube one time. I had just moved to this new spot in Albuquerque, and how YouTube you look up something on YouTube, then I'll just autoplay it. I looked up oil painting. Yeah. And I think it was like Cesar Santos that I looked at. Oh, and that's amazing. And I had like bought his digital download and all that stuff. Yeah. And I just looked him up, and then I started playing other stuff, and all of a sudden David's Painting a Life trailer came on. Yeah. And when I saw that, I just like stopped, and I was like, holy fuck, this is a painting? Yeah. And then I dove in deeper, and then I went to his website, and I saw that he had all these workshops listed, and that he came to Albuquerque, but it was already passed, and that he had another one coming. And he was still in New York at this time? Living in New York? He was about to transition, but he was still in, I think, Brooklyn. Yeah. And so I kept messaging them, but I was doing it through my iPhone, so I wasn't getting the notifications from it where it says sent for my iPhone, not your fucking email. Oh, got you. And they were responding, but I just wasn't getting it. And I was just getting frustrated. And then when he put on that he was coming to Albuquerque, Gabe actually tagged me that he was coming. And then I said, yeah, dude, I wrote them I don't know how many times, and they're not responding. They said, try again. And then I looked, and I was like, oh, shit. They've been responding. And so I saw the prices of how much they were, and I was just like, it's very prestigious. I was never, I'm used to taking, we're all used to taking tattooers workshops, painting workshops or something. So it wasn't as high as price as it was, I was just like, dude, I don't know if I can afford this. I mean, I can afford it, but this is all I got right now.
Yeah.
And he's all, look at it, and Gabe told me, look at it as this. Look at it as that you can't afford to miss it.
Yeah.
And I was just like, all right. So I had to talk to my wife. I told her I'd do this, but, like, you know, consider this my birthday and my Christmas present because they're both in December.
Yeah.
And that's when the workshop was. And so I took it, and we did back-to-back workshops. So with the way he functions and the way Shayna functions, they do multiple days from 9 to 3 or 4, and they'll demo for 3 hours, and then we'll have a lunch break, and then we'll come and we'll demo for 3 hours after that.
Yeah.
So it's like it really ingrains in your head, and you really they go over the whole entire process with you right then and there, and just consistently doing that over and over, and then being invited and ended up being friends with them. Like, ended up getting a tattoo shop right next to them because I had some friends that were right next to them, and they ended up moving. And I was just I didn't want to say like out of bitterness, being just sick of working with other people. I just didn't want to make other people have to suffer to contribute to my likings in a shop environment.
Yeah.
And I hated stereo wars. I just was at a point in my life where just getting anxiety where I'd have my TV on. My friend would have his TV on, but his speakers were one of those speakers where it would amp up during action scenes or music scenes, and it'd just be super low for dialogue.
Yeah.
So I was just sick of that. And I was just like, okay, I got to find my own happiness, and I have to make it my own, and I don't want to work with anyone to have to make them adapt to my liking. But my buddy Jarrett has been just traveling for the past 2 years, and when he found out word that I was opening up a shop, he said that he would stay in Albuquerque if he was going to work with me. And he's the only guy I consider to work with. Not that everyone's bad or whatever, but we've just known each other. We know we're very opposite, but we know how to go with each other on a funny sense of things and tolerate each other and just make humor out of it, even if it's heated.
Yeah, got you. So what would you say, having worked actually working next door to David and Shayna now, and having worked with them through the workshop, how has it affected your work and your tattoo work in particular?
The sense of reality, David, just his whole philosophy of like painting beyond the photo. He doesn't like to, when people say your paintings look so photorealistic, he's just like, to him in a way it's an insult because he's trying to make things look more real, making things look round, making things look like they have full volume.
Yeah. And
with Shayna, like I had to learn how to stencil just the paint, the image onto the canvas, on the boards themselves their way versus how I used to do it with portraits, because they like where they talk about like how skin pulls this way or how it curves up here and it pulls through the sides. So pulling and pushing and all that stuff was very new to all that. Yeah. And now I've applied that with when I do portraits or animals, like really look how things are going and where they're going to make sure you get that shape and stuff. Yeah. And then learning how to tighten things up and learning how to soften. Because you see some portrait artists where they just have every little thing so tight and it makes it look flat, or everything's so loose and blurry, you can't really focus on anything, and it doesn't really last. Like, you'll see it like just fade off in just a couple months. Yeah. What
was different about their transfer process? You said they were stenciling on the board?
Yeah.
What are they doing?
So sometimes, David, if we're just studying from a photo, we'll just get the photo, we'll print it out in black and white, and we'll just not up the contrast, but lower the contrast so you can see all the little details. Oh. So in tattooing, what I would see a lot, like an amateur thing to do, is you'd see these big fields of black and darkness, and you just see people just filling that whole thing. But there's still something behind that. There's still something that's built up on that. So they take out all the contrast, and you see what shapes are there, and you capture that, and you just build up. So throughout that darkness, your eye will still see something in there, and it'll make out something versus just seeing this big black shadow or something like that.
Yeah.
And then just the lights themselves, how there is no white in reality. There's just no solid white. In photos, they capture white, but in reality, you're just building and building up lights, but there's no white.
Right. Right.
So that's been very beneficial in all that process.
Yeah. So so you're applying that philosophy to your tattooing as well as your painting.
Yeah, and as far as like color stuff, like it's just hard though. Like every chance when I get the chance to do it, I'll do it.
Yeah.
But as far as my black and grays, I feel like if it doesn't need white, then I'm not gonna put it.
Yeah.
Now I'm trying to get in the transition of putting more white just to see how it ages, just to see how it does, because I've been really following a black and gray artist, David Vega.
Oh,
and he's just really studying his hand motions, just really studying what he does, and it's amazing.
I can't figure it out. I know he posts his work a lot. You know, he does a lot of Instagram lives, and I do sit and watch those a little bit. It's something I can't get over how smooth it is and how his light grays are so saturated and fall so perfectly into the skin tones. And I keep thinking, like, he has to be using some type of a filter, a blur filter or something on that stuff. There's got to be something. But you watch him work, and it looks like he's just incredibly methodical, very, very slow, and you know, and just it looks to me like it'll say, you know, David Vega was live for the last 16 hours, where like, so these little portraits are taking him forever to do. So I guess they're just settling out, but it's absolutely amazing the blends that he's getting.
Yeah, like I've been like studying all that, and now I do his hand motions, just how people do that brush stroke back and forth.
Yeah,
his is just like almost like a soft. I don't want to say teeter totter, but like just like a motion of a boat or something like that. So I've been like really trying to emulate that, and it seems to work out for the most part.
So we were talking about using white. What have you noticed with him that you're trying to incorporate from that standpoint? Anything?
From what I've seen, he'll put white in almost everything. He'll put white in the background. He'll put white in the foreground. He'll put white almost everywhere. Yeah. But from how he does it, it works. Yeah. Like I was always showed, if you're gonna put something black in anything, either put it in the background or the foreground. Don't put one in the other, in the same rules with white. But with him, I've seen him do it both, and he achieves it. Yeah. So it's just crazy to see like him kind of breaking those rules, and it actually works.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a funny thing we've talked about a little bit with a couple of people up here over the weekend is all of these kind of hard and fast rules that we always kind of held to before we were able to witness something like that. And of course, I've only seen David Vega's work for the last couple of years. I have no idea what it looks like in 10 or 15 or 20 years. Yeah. But it's funny that we had all of these ideas of these rules, and you see people starting to break them, and you're like, oh, you're going to learn that shit doesn't work. And then you go, oh, damn, it does work. Like, why didn't I do that? Yeah. It's a funny thing that we're starting to witness when we see people that just have no consideration for what we feel like are the tried and true rules of tattooing.
And that was the one thing that had to ingrain in me until I took a Nick Baxter seminar. Yeah. Where I was young and super naive and really trying to prove that you can make a good solid tattoo without black, which I'm sure people can. Yeah. But I had to sit when I took Nick's seminar on painting, and he had these transparent slides of like, so we have this color. If you add this thin color, this is how it looks, as it is transparent. But if you add these two, this is what they'll probably make. Yeah. Because also, if you think of tattooing, if someone's skin tone is this, and you're trying to add this is how it's going to look when it heals. Yeah. And then it clicked with me. I was like, oh, so that's why black is so important. Because I'd always tell people, well, why do you add black? And you'd be all, because that's the rules. Like, no one had a reason for me to understand it. Yeah. So in my mind, when Nick gave that seminar, I was like, so that's why black is so important, because when skin heals over ink, it's going to tim it down from your skin tone to what's on that. And especially if you're just doing skin tone, it's going to match it up, so it's going to look like as if it's just blended right in. Yeah. So black is there to show a more dominant color than your skin tone is, so it's going to show a truer value of all these colors of how they're going to look. So everything made sense after that. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I always think of it as, we don't have, we're working with a more limited palette, more limited value range in tattooing than any other visual art, right? I mean, you can get pretty black on canvas, you can get pretty white on canvas, but over the long
over the long haul, you know, if we're talking about skin and there's a value scale from 1 to 10, we're basically working maybe up to 7 and down to 3 at best.
Yeah.
So we have this limited range, so we kind of have to simplify and push that. So without black, now we're working from 3 to 5, you know, on evaluation. It's like, oh, then you just lost. There's no way around it.
Yeah, and that's a hard thing to actually do unless you're actually sitting down and doing it and working it out and asking questions. It's almost like a science project.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's your plan from here? Are you doing Explorer after this or no?
Yes, I am. I don't think I've missed an Explorer yet.
Really?
And
have you gotten a lot from them? I haven't been to one yet.
oh yeah, my favorite one so far was the first one. Like, they're all good, but the first one was, for me, the most fun, just because even if it catered to a lot of illustration tattooers, and they all had like the same information for the most part, but they would explain it in a different way, or if you heard it in somewhat of the same way, it stuck in your head and it gave validation that that's a good technique that works.
Yeah.
So you heard people do a lot of the teachers were doing thumbnails, or they would do so many different layouts. They try a couple of different things before they actually stuck to one thing.
Yeah.
And like overall, it was just really, really fun. It was just a great environment. It wasn't too serious. It was super fun and enjoyable, and I loved it. And I look forward to these things every time. And even if I've seen them over and over, and if I don't get the chance to practice it, I'll hear it again and again, and hopefully it'll stick in my head. So by the time it does happen, it just repeats back in my head.
Yeah. It's funny. I a lot of times I feel like we're saying the same things over and over on this show, but I realize the podcasts that I listen to, most of the, I might be listening to a business podcast, and they're kind of saying the same things, but I kind of just need to hear it over and over. I know what they're going to say, but it just doesn't resonate with me the same way each time, or, I'll hear it at the right point when I'm trying to solve my own problem. And I may have heard that person say that a dozen times before, but because I'm in the middle of solving this problem in my own mind right now, it resonates with me more. And I'm like, oh, shit, that does apply. I already knew that, and I'm not using it.
Yeah, and that's one thing I picked up from Dan's Pimbles, is where he talks about silhouettes and how if things are touching, I can't remember the term that he says about it, but I always think about it now if I'm drawing just anything, and if just the edges are touching, it just doesn't look right. It looks almost like crammed, like you're just forcing it to fit that space versus just overlapping it.
Yeah.
So every time that happens, I either go back and readjust things, but that's just one thing just I've heard him say over and over again, and now I pay attention to it every time I do something.
Yeah. It's they say that I heard someone, Evan Pagan, I think, said educate. The root word of educate. You think of educating as like you're sharing your knowledge, but educate. The root of it comes from to draw out from within, or so to like bring out what they already know and show it to them. It's kind of like to help someone solve their own problem in their own way. And I love thinking of it that way. And I hope that's what that's what we try to do in this channel, and definitely that's what the best teachers do. I think we were talking earlier about Jeff Gogwe, and that he's definitely one that does that in his teachings and his seminars.
Yeah, Jeff is, I think, for the last few years. I mean, he slowed down for the most part, but for a while it just seemed like he was the only one that was putting things out. I mean, stuff has always been everywhere, but when I was like, we all have this thing where we cater to someone where we want to learn from that person, and it doesn't really help when you're trying to learn from several different people. It helps when you're just trying to learn from one person. Like when the Paradise Artist Retreat was going on back in the day, like I love those events, and they were great, and they were just all these painting workshops stacked upon each other, and as soon as you got done with one, learning a few things from there, all of a sudden it all got erased because you had to start another one, and you had to refresh your mind on that. So doing that 3 to 4 times a day, you would do them, but then you'd forget them as soon as you learned them. And so with these fine art things and just learning from, say, someone like Jeff, where it was just more you stuck to that person because you were learning and things were making sense because they were coming from one mind. And after a while, things started clicking. So that's with David and Shayna, I've learned to stop looking at other people for learning how to paint because they would confuse me. I'll do it for sure for one other person because the way she teaches, her name is Dorielle. I can't pronounce her last name. Or I just can't remember if it's away, so I'd rather not
Yeah.
say it than get it wrong.
Yeah, I hear you.
But Dorielle, she's super awesome. I love her personality. I love the way she paints, and I love her workshops. She's another fine artist based out of Santa Fe who used to live in Albuquerque.
Yeah.
And she's just super fun, and she's all about self-portraits, but they don't even have to look like you. They can just be more about what's going on in your life or have something to do with more symbolism. And she's been super awesome too, and that doesn't really confuse me to take her. So she's the only one outside of David and Shayna that I've been doing. So right now I'm just committing to David and Shayna and only just going to be with them.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think that's a great way. It's nice to pull things in from a lot of sources, but having one main kind of teacher. That's why an apprenticeship done correctly is like with the best form of teaching and learning, I think. And you can pull from other people in your shop, but if you have one mentor, you'll learn a lot faster than if you have 4 mentors in the same shop.
Oh yeah, because they all have different minds. They're all telling you different things, and
Yeah.
it's confusing the fuck out of you.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So, well, cool. Well, if people want to keep up with you, where do they find you? What's the easiest way?
On Instagram, Rudy_Lopez_NM. Probably the best way.
Okay. We'll drop links to that, and I'm sure we've been dropping some photos of your work over the video, so people don't have to look at us the entire time. But we'll drop a link to the Instagram, and for booking, you book through Instagram, or how?
My email's on Instagram or
Okay.
that stuff. If you don't get a response, please try again, or my phone number's on there as well.
Oh,
So
bold.
yeah, and I'm just trying to manage myself right now, but I'm trying to get a reliable person. It's just trying to get someone that's putting the care into it that you want.
Yeah.
So that's the hard part.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, man, thanks for taking the time. It was a
Thank
lot
you.
of fun.
Appreciate it.
Thank you guys for supporting what we do. We'll see you next time, and thanks to Tattoo the Lou for hosting us. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.